Welcome to the Get Trauma Informed podcast, dedicated to unraveling the complexities of trauma, its pervasive impact, and the journey towards holistic recovery and realignment. If your radiance has ever felt muted, like I and thousands of others, you're in the right place to reignite your inner light. I'm your host, Wellness Coach Liz Blanding, and this is the Get Trauma Informed podcast. Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Get Trauma Informed podcast, where we are continuing our mini-series, our mini trauma recovery talks. We are continuing the series on trauma-informed leadership. Today, we are on week number 4, organization trauma, triggers and responses. We're going to touch on organizational PTSD, unsafe environments, unclear policies, unhealed leadership. We're going to touch on just a little bit about common triggers, micromanagement, top-down communication, inconsistencies. And we want you to grab a pen because we want you to take notes as we are walking through what trauma-informed leadership looks like, but we also want you to get involved. What have you witnessed or experienced in a workplace that was toxic? Right? That's the question we want you to answer this week. I can share a little bit about one of my experiences in a toxic workplace where right after my car accident, I went back to work too fast. And as I went back to work, I had an issue with my legs freezing up on me. I had a manager to get so upset because I was stuck frozen in a chair for a little bit of time. And I missed a couple of calls, I believe it was. And she threw the claims up against, I worked for an insurance company. She threw the basket of claims up in the air. Toxic work environment. Everything about that was unsafe. It was all about unresolved trauma. And she re-traumatized me, right? So that was an example. So if you have an example, please note that. But let's talk a little bit about what happens here. Most people associate trauma with personal experience, right? But trauma can also live within the system and structures of an organization. Organizational trauma occurs when the workplace itself becomes a source of chronic stress, fear, or emotional harm. This stems from unresolved leadership issues, unethical practices, inconsistent communication, or environments that ignore emotional well-being. The signs often mirror individual trauma responses, and this is a great point to take a note. Some of the individual trauma responses includes silence, defensiveness, high turnover, disengagement, or sudden emotional outbursts. These are not just HR problems. They are trauma signals, right? And it's very important that we become aware of these trauma signals. When people work in environments where they feel undervalued, unsafe, or constantly on edge, the brain perceives the workplace as a threat. This leads to triggers, seemingly small actions or decisions that cause disproportionately large reactions. For example, an employee who shuts down after receiving critical feedback may be reliving a past experience of verbal abuse. A leader who micromanages might be reacting to their own history of abandonment or betrayal. Without a trauma-informed lens, these behaviors are misunderstood and people are punished instead of supported. That is huge in the workplace. The trauma-informed leader sees beyond the surface. They ask, what happened here instead of what's wrong with them? They build safety by creating predictable environments, encouraging feedback, and responding with empathy, not shame. When leadership practices are consistent, clear, and compassionate, organizations begin to heal. Cultures shift, people show up differently. And most importantly, they stay. I hope this mini trauma recovery talk was helpful, and I will see you in the next episode in week number 5. Bye for now. Go out and be your best self. It's time to buckle up. No more suffering in silence. Our Power Pack journey to recovery and realignment starts now. Remember, you were collateral damage on someone else's warpath. Trauma is not your fault. Recovery, however, is your responsibility. I'm your host, wellness coach Liz Blanding, and this is the Get Trauma Informed podcast.